There we go. Yep. That's how my day's been going. So, like always, or to say a little bit rougher on the stream today, it was the end of a long weekend in Canada. We had Canadian Thanksgiving, fantastic time, just disconnected. But of course, ridiculous me, and that's how my day's been going. There we go. Ridiculous me had the nerve, I guess, to fire up macOS Catalina on my system. Guess what didn't go smoothly? That upgrade to Catalina. So I'm seeing some things that are challenging. The template in, the drop in, all that kind of stuff. But it seems like we're streaming. In fact, we're double streaming here. We are streaming to LinkedIn. We are also streaming to Periscope on Twitter. So I have both open. I think both are working. Give me a second here to see if I can mute this. In fact, we're double streaming. Of course I can't mute Twitter. Why would I mute Twitter? Twitter would make sense. So I have both open. I think both are working. Give me a second here to see if I can mute this. See, there's that double echo. All right, can't mute Twitter. Why could I mute just Twitter? I don't have that app installed either right now. Normally I have SoundSource installed, which would let me actually mute Twitter. Let me see if I can do that. The idea here is that I'll be taking your questions live as we do this. We have approximately 14 minutes before live reInvent seating goes. And this is the idea of being able to install your, not install, but set up your, there we go. We're still going. Good. Okay. So we had this ability to preset. Oh, there we go. Now I might be able to actually do this. That we had the ability to preset. Give me a second. One more time here. And this is the idea of. I'm gonna mute Twitter. There we go. Okay, so I muted Twitter, so I get to see the comments in Twitter now too. Perfect. Thank you for bearing with me. So I can see the comments on Twitter. I can see the comments in Periscope. I can see LinkedIn. So you have questions as we go through this, let me know. Chris has the absolute 100% thing correct. 1 year behind in macOS because you're still getting security updates. The way to go, as opposed to living on the edge. At least I didn't do the beta this time. Normally I'm in the beta and the alpha for these things. I waited for the GA. That's not bad. I've only found like 10 bugs this morning. So we are up and running. I'm seeing all this stuff going, which is great. So if you have questions, fire them off on LinkedIn, on Periscope, on Twitter. If I don't get back to you right away, ping me on one of those again, and I will try to integrate it into the stream. We got 12 minutes. Going to cover some things before we go. The idea here is that, oh my God, these new permissions are absolutely fantastic, but they're also killing me. Every time you want to do something in macOS Catalina, it asks for permissions. Now, I'm the security guy, so you're like, why are you bitching about permissions? Because they are extremely granular. Nice. Good to know. It's just telling me it won't be able to do anything until I pass that off. So here we go. Can we get... Okay. So we're good. I don't have to restart the stream. That's awesome. So here's what we're talking about. Let me get back on track. I am sorry. I am discombobulated. This re-emphasizes the smarter strategy of waiting and not upgrading your OS. We have been doing these streams pretty constantly. Over the last few weeks. You can go to the page. I dropped the link in the LinkedIn chat already to talk about what's going on with reInvent. We've covered a bunch of topics from just the kickoff of this series to Lambda to serverless to S3, stuff like that, right? Today we are going to be covering reserved seating. We have 11 minutes before it opens up. And essentially what it is you have the ability to book into different sessions at reInvent. The majority of the sessions are handled by reserved seating, which means if you don't have a lockdown seat, you're going to be waiting in line. I think it's 10 or 15%. I'm pretty sure it's 10% of session space is reserved for walk-ups. The problem with that is that you're in line to wait to get that walk-up. So it can be kind of challenging. You really want to make sure you lock down a seat, which is why we're on the stream live today. Now, on Monday, there was a number of things that were published on the AWS reInvent site. So if you go to the reInvent site, so reinvent.aws.com, you are going to see under the main menu here, you will see the AWS Hero Guides. This is a set of guides written by myself and a number of other heroes to walk you through sessions that we think are going to really be fantastic, ones that line up with our various topics. So you can see I did practical security, Kesha did machine learning, my good friend Drew did getting started with AWS. It's a newbie's guide. It's phenomenal. Eric Hammond, who's a legend in the AWS community, he did this advanced serverless guide. I love that Margaret did the introverts guide. It's fantastic. So the idea here is that if we click on to Eric's advanced serverless guide, you hear a bit about Eric himself. Essentially, all you need to know, he's Esh on Twitter. That tells you what you need to know for AWS cred. But you scroll down and you start to see what he's recommending, right? So he's talking about, framing this pretty straightforward about what he talked about early on in serverless and how it's advanced over time and it's evolved. And then he's giving you these things like, okay, let's check out the compute leadership session, serverless architectural patterns. Like Eric has mapped out all these fantastic sessions that if you want an advanced education in serverless, these are the ones you really should line up with. And it goes on and on. So if you look at Kesha's guide, she's got a great intro video that explains who she is, her expertise, her experience. And then she goes down and she's actually broken her guide into 3. It's a 3-fer. So noobs, execs, and engineers and architects, right? And so if you're a newbie, here's a great way to get started. You can start with Deep Racer, fantastic. Actually, one of the other heroes, Peter Sparsky, did an entire guide just on Deep Racer. If you want to learn how to be a better racer, his guide is the way to go. But then, how to be successfully become a machine learning developer, that's a great one. Hotel Recommender, really straightforward. You're getting the gist here, right? With these hero guides, it's us as heroes trying to help you guys make sense of the craziness that is the AWS reInvent session catalog. I need to do better at this, but I'll show you my guide real quick. I did a quick intro video back when my tech actually worked as opposed to what's happening today. And I broke my guide down into outcomes. So instead of chronologically, because there's just too many repeat sessions for that to make sense, last year's was like, here's what you should do Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. What I did this time was set up and said, here's what I want to do. So if you want to weave security into business innovation, here's a bunch of topics. If you want to understand the key building blocks of AWS, here's a bunch of topics, right? And so on and so forth. And I think that really helps you understand sort of the goals of modernized security. So every hero's broken their guide down in a different way, whatever makes the most sense for them and the way they see their space. But these are fantastic ways to get a handle on what's going on. I'm just checking in the background for different comments. Again, hit me up on LinkedIn if you LinkedIn or Twitter or Periscope if you have any comments as we're going. I think the LinkedIn stream is still going. You never know with this stuff. It's always dicey. But I am recording this behind the scenes, at least I hope I am. Yes, I'm recording it. Thank God. You never know when you reinstall, all the defaults change, and I always had my streaming thing set to record, so hopefully this is recording. But it looks like my LinkedIn is actually frozen. We'll see if it's still going. I'm going to double check. Yeah, it's still going, which is awesome. Okay, good. So, again, ask me questions on LinkedIn, Periscope, Twitter as we go through this. But with the hero guides, we have this all set, and that's a recommendation. But they took it a step further. So now I just switched over to the AWS reInvent session catalog. Now, you notice in the top corner, I'm actually logged in. You have to log in to flag sessions or to book them. Now, unfortunately, it's really hard to build a calendar out until 6 minutes from now when reserve seating opens up. But what you could be doing, and what we've been recommending, and what you've seen me tweeting about and talking about on LinkedIn, is flag sessions of interest. So you have all the breakdown of the initial codes here. There are, these are the prefix codes. There are suffix codes as well. -R is a repeated session. So that session is offered multiple times. -L is a leadership session. So that's sort of the seminal, here's the flag in the ground, this is where we are, this is where we're going. And then -S is sponsored sessions. So those are sponsored by APN partners. I'm actually giving 2 sponsored sessions on behalf of Trend Micro, but those are -S, and it's also in the abstract description as the last bit that is a sponsored session. So make sure you want to go to that. But you can see right off the bat, we have some activities under the ACT category. So I am interested in going in Midnight Madness. I am not going to eat wings because that is not a good idea for me because I'll get a little competitive and I'm really trying to watch my diet so I can get rid of the extra chin. So not going to do that. You could do ping pong night, you could do or ping pong tournament, you could do bingo night, arts and crafts, the movie night. I totally want to do the movie night actually, so I'm flagging that. broomball, dodgeball, all this great stuff, right? So ideally, you've gone through the catalog already and flagged things that you're interested in. What I wanted to point out was they just added this on Monday, which I think is super, super cool. The heroes who did guides are filters. We're filters in the catalog. So if I want to see what Eileen did, I can just click on Eileen, and it's going to filter everything out for what Eileen did. Now, I don't think her guide is live right now, which is unfortunate, but if we scroll down to me, click me, I'm a filter. Woo! It's not a life goal, but I did it. And then you get all the sessions that I flagged that I thought were cool. Now, there's 2 in here that I did not get in on time for the guide because they were added later in the day that I think it's worth calling out in the 3 minutes before we wait. So I got to clear my filter. So that's the one thing. While you're doing this catalog, make sure you clear your filters if you do a new search. So I searched for Sec 212, and I hadn't cleared my previous filter, so it wasn't going to show me. This one, Responsible Disclosure with AWS Security, looks fantastic. The session on its own is great. The fact that Corey Quinn, Quinnipig on Twitter, is one of the speakers, someone's going to regret that decision. It's not going to be the audience. This is going to be an epic talk. Make sure to track that down. And then Eric had actually pointed this out, Esh on Twitter, that one of the best speakers on security is giving a talk, Sec 316. Bridget Johnson, Senior Manager at AWS Identity. She's a phenomenal speaker. I would go see any talk she gave. The fact that she's giving one on access attribute-based access control is super amazing because it's a fantastic security topic. I wanted to add this into the guide. Wasn't able to push it in because of the deadlines because we're trying to get this stuff up and running. So we've got 3 minutes. I'm hoping I'm going to keep reloading my LinkedIn stream in the background because LinkedIn doesn't want to see doing it. So it looks like we're still streaming here on LinkedIn. I think I'm getting comments if you need them. So please hit me up on the comments for... there, let me see if that works. I had to unpause Ghostery in the background. So yeah, if you're on LinkedIn, give me the comments. If you're here on Periscope, hit me up in the comments, or you can just tweet me at MarkNCA, and happy to answer anything as we go. We have 2 minutes basically before this loads up and we're allowed to actually book sessions. So this is a first come, first serve basis. There's a few things you need to be aware of that I can cover. Actually, this. Hopefully you've already watched the How to Reinvent episode on reserve seating. Annie and Jill did a great job of covering what the restrictions are and why they're there. I'll cover them again in the last 2 minutes before this goes live. You will be unable to book a session that is too close to another session in another building. Travel time is locked into the calendar. So no matter how fast you think you can get from a building, AWS has determined minimum travel times and they've enforced them in the catalog. The idea here is they don't want you rushing around for your own sake, but they also don't want you occupying a bunch of space that you're not going to be able to get to realistically because demand will be high for a bunch of these different sessions. So you will not be able to do that. It'll actually pop you up with a warning and say, hey, you can't make this in time. Here's the conflict. Excuse me. Similarly, if you have set a another booked seat or are on a waiting list for something in a conflicting time slot, you will not be able to do that. So you will not be able to book something for 9 a.m. on Monday and be on a waiting list for 9 a.m. Monday, or on 2 waiting lists at the same time. You have one chit basically to put down in each of those time slots. So that's really important to remember. We got about 30 seconds here before this goes live. So the reason why you were starring all these sessions that you were interested in is because there's this interests button or section on the side. This is going to allow you to book this easier. So it looks like it's live right now. I should already have a seat in this one. I am the speaker. I'm going to say I don't need to book that. But this one I believe is, this is Tim's session. Tim Bray, fantastic mind. I'm going to reserve a seat there. So that's it. I reserve the seat. So seating is live right now. Get in there. Do what I'm doing. Go to your interest lists. And again, I'm speaking in this one. I don't need to grab it. But the Corey Quinn one, you know what? I'm in. And you'll see here, it warns me. Scan in at least 10 minutes before the beginning of your session or you forfeit your seat. The reason the scary language there is that 10 minutes before, anyone who's not in the reserved line with a reserved seat will those seats will be freed up. You will be allowed, those will go to the walk-up lines, okay? So as I'm doing this, I'm just making sure that I get in to each of these. So there's a few key ones. Here we go. So I can't go see Adrian's session because I don't have enough time on my schedule, right? So this one is in the Venetian at 12:15. So what is blocking me here? I'm in the MGM for responsible disclosure. Let's remove that seat and book one in with Adrian's, and we'll try to grab the other one there. So this is a repeat session in action. There's 2 for Sec 212. I had them both flagged as interested because this one conflicted with what I wanted to go see on Monday. So now I can go see it on Wednesday in the Mirage. Another key thing about these -R repeat sessions. The repeats are normally at different times in different buildings. So if you're just going to stick to one building, don't recommend it. But if you do, then you're going to be able to actually book the multiple times, right? So you find which time is the most effective for your schedule and grab it in. I think that's a fantastic thing that's going on this year with AWS. Now this is in the ARIA, I think. Yeah, so this is already booked. Look at that. Add to waitlist. We're 2 minutes in and this is already booked. I'm going to add myself to the waitlist. So I may be assigned a reserved seat if one comes available. If somebody removes it from the schedule, I'll get in there. But now I can click on this session title and find any repeats. There's no repeats listed yet. There will be repeats, or it's just not populating. We're going to check that in a second. Net 13R. By the way, Net is actually Netflix. Netflix has its own theme, which I thought was amazing. I really want to see this one. Okay. AWS architecture, please. Oh, I have a conflict. So I want to see definitely the moving to event-driven. I want to see Tim's talk over that. I'll catch this. So here's a great example. I have a conflict and I don't want to move it, and the one is not being repeated. So actually, they're both not being repeated. This is a great time to remind you all this stuff goes up on YouTube a week or two after reInvent. So being in the session, you get the energy, you get the chance to ask the speaker questions afterwards normally, or out into the speaker chat area, and you get to talk to attendees, and that's it's a good experience, right? This is why you're going to reInvent. Come on. Wait a second. Pause. Oh, come on. So this is one of the challenges I find with the schedule is it will not show you what's conflicting. So I'm trying to get into Becky's session. I don't have enough time. Okay, well, tell me what's conflicting so I can fix it. There is a way through calendar. We'll do that in a second. I need to get in on Midnight Madness, and I need to get in on this. So while I'm talking about that, so all this stuff goes up on YouTube afterwards, but being in the session is really cool. It's really that energy, that vibe. Again, if you have questions, guys, ask me. Hopefully you're not paying attention right now, which sounds horrible for a streamer to say. Hopefully you're not paying attention because you're trying to book as many sessions as you can, just like I am while I'm talking to you. This is the best it's worked in years, which is amazing. I'm glad AWS beefed this up. Come on, movie night. Roll the dice. Movie night. Spinny loady signs, always not super reassuring, but I'm in for Midnight Madness. I think Midnight Madness caps out at like 3,500 people, so you should be able to get in this early. Movie night, I don't know. Movie night is not a ton of people. So I really am an introvert, believe it or not. The fact that I'm doing streaming aside, the fact that I'm a public speaker aside, very much like to recharge. I thought movie night might be a nice way to recharge with some folks. And I love movies from the 80s because it was a crazy, crazy time, and it's amazing what we put into movies that we would not accept at all in any way, shape, or form nowadays. But anyway, that aside, I'm hoping these refresh and lock me in. So they've reserved me in. I think I'll be okay. So if we go back to the event catalog, you're going to see you've got the ability to search through this stuff again, right? So if you want to take session level, you can filter by session level. Remember, the AWS session level is basically 200 is really an intro, even though it's listed in intermediate. It's basically an introduction to the topic at hand. I'm giving 200 talks this year, right? So the 200 talk on security is very much like, hey, this is how security works. This is the overview of it in the cloud. And yes, if you saw me ranting on Twitter with Eric last night, I never give salesy stuff. So you can rest assured, even though it's a sponsored session, it will be purely educational. The other session I'm involved with is DOP, so DevOps 204. It's a customer story, and I make sure those aren't salesy either. But depending on if you like to hear case studies or not. But 200 level, very intermediate or very introductory, very much like, hey, this is the ins and outs of whatever topic is at hand. 300 is sort of the grab bag. 300, you're going to get, the guidance internally for 300s is that they should deliver technical content. You shouldn't be afraid of showing command line or code. You should be showing architectural diagrams, things like that with real examples, but also with the overview as well. So you help bridge people into the topic. For 400, these are the ones that I actually prefer. It's going to sound horrible. I don't like watching these in person because I really like watching them on YouTube. And the reason being, and I consume an insane amount of the 400 levels every year as they get pushed up on YouTube. And the reason why I say I don't like watching them in person is because these are really deep dive technical sessions. Awesome. That's great. If it's actually a talk and not a workshop, and we'll talk about that in a second. If it's a talk, the reason why I like watching it on YouTube is because I can pause it and then start researching. So if somebody says, hey, this is how Transit Gateway works under the covers, I go, hold on a second. And I can dive into the Nitro layer and look at previous talks, and really, I end up, writing a huge amount of notes on those talks. And I find that just for me, for workflow, it's nice when I'm kind of sitting here and can work through that. The whiteboard. If you ever wondered what the shiny thing is in the background, it's actually the light I have here shining off the big glass whiteboard I have behind. Highly recommend getting a glass whiteboard. They've dropped in price significantly since I bought that one, even though that one is actually a dining room table from IKEA. Sadly, they don't sell it anymore because that was the cheapest way, but I bought another one for the family office upstairs, a normal whiteboard, and they were pretty inexpensive and fantastic. Glass whiteboards, definitely the way to go. End of side rant. So, the thing I wanted to point out here, 400 levels, right? I like consuming them later, but you'll notice on this page right off the bat, we have a couple different types of sessions. We have a builder session. We have a workshop. You'll also see chalk talks. And a couple other session types. So a builder session is normally it's a talk, right? It's just a talk. But a workshop should be 2 hours. Yeah, so this workshop's 2 hours and 15 minutes. And basically with the workshops, you're going to be doing some stuff, right? So a 400 level workshop is awesome. If your technical skills are up to that level, 400 level workshops are amazing if you can get in. Basically, you bring your laptop, you sit down, and you do a deep dive. So here you can do one on PyTorch, you can do one on MXNet, right? So a lot of great machine learning ones because we're looking at the machine learning level. But if you did sec... I just got prompted by one of my apps that I just installed. Hold on 2 seconds. There we go, sound source. So sound source is this handy little app I've got that lets me mute specific things. It's why we're actually able to do the Twitter thing and not hear the echo. So if we typed in sec for security at 400 level, we should see a filter. So you notice the catalog's slowing down a bit. Not by too much though. All right, so it won't let me filter there, but what you can do is go on the side and filter based on security somewhere. Industry, not industry, Mark. What are you doing? There we go. Topics. Security, compliance, and identity. I love how all of them in there. So here's all the 400 levels. So GPS is General Global Partner Summit. You probably want to avoid those unless you're a partner because they're very specific to partners. Like, hey, this is how we're doing things here. But this is an amazing workshop. Okay, AWS Encryption SDK for multi-master key encryption. If you have ever struggled trying to implement this design pattern with encryption, this is the best way to learn it, right? Because you're literally going to sit down for 2 hours and 15 minutes with one of the senior managers from cryptography, one of the senior engineers from the cryptography team, and they're going to help you fix stuff. They're going to help you work through a sample challenge and say, this is how you set up encryption via the SDK. Okay, so a workshop is 2 hours and 15 minutes. Now, that sounds like a huge commitment. It is. It's a big time commitment. It is worth it. 100% worth it. Now, on my guide, I did not book, and I know a lot of the heroes avoided recommending workshops, not because we don't support them. We 100% support them, but because they have limited space. And we didn't want to put the guides out that are trying to get to the broad audience and saying, hey, try to get into this workshop where they're only allowing 50 people in or 75 people in. It just wasn't conducive to that. But that's why I wanted to bring it up in this stream, right? So building secure APIs in the cloud is an amazing workshop. It talks about Cognito, WAF, API gateway security features, the usage plans on gateway, X-Ray. This is an amazing, amazing session, right? If you're interested in building secure APIs, that's the way to go. And you can go across this for all of them. Other things we want to cover really quick as you guys are booking this stuff out. So you notice the session type. Activities are literally just like the Midnight Madness, Tatanka, that kind of stuff. 20-minute presentations, there's a bunch of them this year, which is cool. There's a bunch that you don't have to actually lock into. So some of these are all demo present or sponsored presentations. There's a bunch in the developer lounge as well that you do not need to book seats for. We'll be covering the developer lounge in another stream. I'm a huge supporter of the developer lounge. I spoke there in the summits, in the summit series over the spring and the summer. The builder sessions we talked about. Chalk Talks are again smaller audience, hour-long, basically discussions, right? So it's an expert or two, they'll seed the discussion, and then they'll just talk to you about whatever. Very cool. Dev chats, we talked about those. You don't need to book a seat. Can you book a seat? Yeah, you can't even book a seat if you wanted to. But like this one's a great one here. DVC 01. This is, I just want to make sure. Oh, it's not even listing who the speaker is. I know who the speaker is, and they are phenomenal. You need to definitely check out this. Are you ready for a cloud pen test? Great. It's not been scheduled because you don't need to lock it in yet. But when we get closer to reInvent, we'll cover those. Hackathons and jams. If you can get in, go for it. Some of these were part of the registration process, so you actually had to pay during registration to get a seat. Then the normal sessions, then Spotlight Labs are literally hands-on lab stuff. Tatanka gets its own category for some reason. Don't know why. But if you like wings or cauliflower, that's the way to go. And then the workshops. And again, you can filter by day, you can filter by venue, the topics, your level, and then industry. The industry I find somewhat useful, but the problem with industry filtering is that there's a ton of stuff that you can learn from other industries that's applicable to yours. So if you're looking for literally somebody laying out, like I have problem XYZ and this is how I solved it, filter by industry. Other than that, I think Topic's way better because Topic is going to give you a much more accurate, or not accurate, but it's going to give you a better perspective. The whole goal I find of reInvent is to learn from different perspectives. There's going to be an insane amount of people, well over 50,000 who are coming to this thing. That's a great opportunity to learn from people. And maybe even if you're in advertising and marketing, maybe somebody solved the problem you're dealing with in the educational market. And if you filter by vertical, like by industry, you might not see it. Now, that being said, if you're hunting for something at scale that you're not sure about, this is a great way to filter. So one of the things that's a really interesting one is when you filter by games and tech, you're going to start to see some stuff at scale that you probably don't have to deal with in your area, right? So the Rovio ones, they're always great. But like this one caught my eye, migrating the live Pokemon database to Aurora Postgres SQL, because there's 300 million players pushing on that DB, and they migrated it while it was live. You may be in finance and dealing with the same kind of scale. So you can find utility in those filters. So don't be afraid of them, but they're not necessarily the best way to find it. You might be better off typing something like a product name into the search box, and then you'll see everything that's mentioned that particular product in the title or in the abstract. But that's it. That's how, it's pretty straightforward. I also love talks like this. How Prime Video processes 8% of all US internet traffic on AWS. Not a scale most of us have to deal with. Very, very cool. Also, one of the reasons why Netflix has its entire category to itself. That's it. Nice and simple. Did not crash. Did not see any issues. Nobody pinged me on Twitter screaming that this did not work, which was great. That's a first this year. AWS takes your feedback extremely seriously, and I'll tell you that as we're closing this out, to the point where they actually reached out to the heroes and said, if you're doing anything like this, let us know. We have support in place if things are going wrong, that you can talk to people and get the answer and the accurate information out. I love that. That's a fantastic way to engage the community. Great news, didn't need it because this worked pretty much flawlessly. A little extra laggy, but if it goes from half a second to 1 second, no big deal. I got the sessions that I was able to get that I wanted to. Now, you would have booked a lot more sessions than I did. I'm giving a couple sessions, and I've got a ton of commitments outside of attending talks. So I only try to get into a few sessions. And that's, I did an interview this morning with a journalist talking about, what should people know about reInvent? And I'll give you guys the same thing I told them was, don't try to do everything. Pick a couple sessions every day that are really interesting to you and attend them, but then make sure to engage with people. Talk to people around you. Maybe take a certification exam. Go to some of the evening events. Take some opportunity to try what you're learning, right? Like bust open that laptop and take advantage of the free tier and try to build something new. That's always cool. Also remember, new service launches are not in the catalog. They will get added to the catalog after the keynote. So we're going to go through this again post keynote on either if they announce something. So there's 5 possible slots where they announce things. They've done announcements previously at Midnight Madness. It's rare, but normally they launch one thing. They do Monday Night Live. We'll have some announcements. Tuesday night is the Tuesday morning is the Global Partner Summer keynote. They tend not to announce generally available stuff there. They announce features specifically for partners, but there's a potential. And then, of course, we have Andy's on Wednesday and Werner's on Thursday, where there's going to be a ton of new stuff announced, which means we'll get a lot of repeats Friday morning. Friday morning is a great way to clean up a bunch of sessions that you missed or were unable to get into earlier in the week. So don't fly out Thursday night. Definitely check out the replay party Thursday night. Then Friday morning, once you wake up and are recovered, it's a great opportunity to get in 3 or 4 more talks because a lot of people aren't up or aren't around anymore, and those repeats are happening. So this is phase 1. This is just the opening. Hopefully you got the sessions you wanted. I very much hope you did. I hope this helped you out a little bit, understanding what the process was, what the different session types were. I'm sure I made some mistakes here or there. I'm glad that you guys stuck with me. Hopefully you forgive me a little bit. Little crazy on the tech. Again, take Christopher's comment on LinkedIn very seriously. Don't upgrade your OS right away because there's going to be some problems. Then inevitably you forget to configure things and you have to do it on the fly while, a bunch of people are watching live. But I appreciate your patience. I appreciate you sticking along. I appreciate you guys as an audience and a community. If you want to hear different things on the stream, we're going to be streaming 2-3 times a week leading up to reInvent. One last thing. We're 47 days out from reInvent, which means if you want to do the charity run on the Tuesday morning, as friend Nick from Australia reminded me, it's cold. I was like, it's like 5 degrees. It's perfect. He said that's cold, apparently, for a lot of you. So 5 degrees Celsius is cold for running. I thought it was perfect. The charity is a 4K or an 8K. If you've never run before, I will drop a great link to a Runner's World article and you can tell from me, I am not a big runner. I can't even think of the word. So I'm dropping this right now in the LinkedIn, doing the charity run. So here's a couch to 5K 6-week beginner plan. It literally gets you off the couch and doing a 5K. We're running 4K at reInvent on the Tuesday morning. It's 45-day schedule. So day 47 right now, get started. Get started now and you'll be comfortably able to run that charity event. And if you're not going to run the charity event, still think about donating directly because it's a fantastic cause. I believe it's going to Girls Who Code and a number of other charities. So again, thanks for tuning in for reserved seating. I hope you guys are set up for a fantastic day. Let me know what topic you want to hear next, and we'll see you on the next stream.